Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar or our engagement seminar here on enrolling in San Francisco public schools. Thank you all for joining us today. I and my partner Rachel are your hosts today. We're with the Level Up group. This is not a real estate pitch, but I did want to share a little bit about our team as the sponsor of this great event today. We help people reach their real estate goals and level up their lives. That's kind of our mission, and helping people reach their goals of personal and financial prosperity. So if you did happen to have any real estate questions come up, either before or after this session, feel free to shoot us a line. You can schedule a quick call with us at calllevelup.com. And Rachel, do you want to introduce some of our distinguished friends today?
Yeah, so I'm Rachel, a residential real estate agent on Michael's team. I'd like to welcome our past and current and future clients and our friends and our partners. I'd like to give a special shout out to the Main Street Mamas group, because I know that's been my favorite Facebook community ever since I became a mom a few months ago. Yeah, and I'm so glad that there was so much interest from that group. And now I'd like to introduce Kate Moore, who is the Assistant Director for Operations for Parents for Public Schools in San Francisco. And this is her pictured with her daughter, Eliza, gearing up for the holidays. And a fun fact about Kate is that she's a member of the 40 Strong Women's Barbershop Chorus.
Over to you, Kate. Thanks so much for having us.
Fantastic. That was a nice picture. We were delivering gifts. I'd collected some Christmas gifts amongst friends and handing them over to an old employer of mine, Hamilton Families, for their families. So that was a nice trip to do in the car with my daughter, who's a bit bigger now. They grow fast. Rachel, they grow fast, so enjoy every minute. So I'm going to crack on. I am going to share my screen in a second, but I just want to welcome you to this presentation and hope you enjoy receiving lots of information. But don't worry, you will get the slides at the end. Don't feel like you need to scribble down lots of information, but if you have a question, you can either put it in the chat, and I will be taking pauses through the presentation to make sure that you feel like you've understood what I've said, or if you've got questions that I don't seem to have covered, I can either tell you it's coming or review some of the slides. But we have got a short amount of time today, so I will try and go slowly enough for you to understand me. I talk too fast sometimes, but I will also be, as I said, sharing the slides afterwards, and I will obviously be around for any questions during the presentation and afterwards. So hang on with those. And yeah, if you want to make a mental note or write something down, by all means, or just drop it into the chat. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So. Okay.
Looks good.
Great, thank you. So welcome to our presentation for all levels of entrance into public school in the city. I imagine, considering we've got lots of Main Street Mamas folks online today, that we'll be thinking a lot about kindergarten or transitional kindergarten enrollment, but I'm definitely going to be covering some information about middle and high school as well. So watch out for that if you are at that stage with your family. Again, I also don't know whether you're in the city and you know stuff about the system already, or you've heard things, or you're coming into the city and you've never heard of anything about the city, just like I didn't when I came here in 2013. I was a complete newbie, no experience whatsoever. I found Parents for Public Schools, and they put me at my ease and helped me find a school that was right for me, my family, and helped me build community, really. And that's one of the great things about public schools in this city, is that they are great community organizations. So I'm going to whiz on to talk to you a bit more about what Parents for Public Schools do. We don't just do enrollment workshops, we do, excuse me, a lot of work around partnering with families to help them get the most out of the education system and to build a stronger city, because we know that if you're involved with education, if you're involved with your child's education, as well as the schools in which your child is being educated, we build that strong community, we build that stronger city, and of all the times we need that right now. So that's another great reason to partner with families. The policy part there is about listening to families, hearing what they've got to say about how they feel about education policy, and feeding that back to the powers that be, the education authorities, but also the city authorities that are helping determine how we move forward with education in the city. You may have seen things in the press lately about that, so it has been definitely a topic that's got even more important for folks in this last 18 months. So today we're going to be talking about the San Francisco Unified School District. It's a bit different to many other school districts, and I would try and explain how it's different. One of the great things about the district is that we do have a wide range of programs and options for families to pick as they go into the system at each level as well. So it's not, you don't just get language programs at kindergarten level, for example, you can do them at middle and high school. So that's really important to note. And I'll be talking about language pathways as well as our special education services that we have in the city and serving public schools. How to choose a school? It's the most popular question that I get at parents of public schools. And what is the golden answer? I will help you try and find out what is the golden answer for your family. So that's definitely one of the things we're going to be covering today. Student assignment, it is basically, how does the system work? What happens when you put your name on the list for a few schools? How does it work? What tiebreakers are? All of those mysterious things that you start to hear about, either when you're entering the city for the first time or when you have a very young child and you haven't experienced the school system here before. So I will definitely be going through all of that and helping to reassure you that it isn't as complicated as you may have heard. So this slide really is about something that we at Parents of Public Schools will always say is worth highlighting, that public education and public schools really do benefit us all. And these are some of the benefits. First of all, that in San Francisco, our public schools are diverse, and this diversity is proven to help us learn the skills we need in life, working with those who are different, seeing different points of view, understanding others. We know that schools that welcome everyone, like public schools welcome everyone, and they have to, and those that are a mixture of races and economic groups really do make the kids that we send in there more employable. Universities and industry knows this. I know it seems a long way off if you've got a little kid, but education does create that workforce that matches the real world of jobs and life in the 21st century. So, and it's your tax dollars that pay for all of this, including some of the resources that you get back in PE, libraries and librarians, arts instruction, health supports. I'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. So the high standards that's listed here is referring to the fact that SFUSD uses a curriculum based on common core standards. These are an agreed set of standards for achievement in English language, arts and maths and science that is actually agreed at a federal level. And then we've agreed that at a state and a county level as well. If you want to dive into some detail about that, there's plenty online at the SFUSD site. But it's definitely worth knowing that these standards are the ones that are applicable by law in public schools. They aren't necessarily applicable to private schools. So we have got the dedicated and excellent teachers is referring to the fact that we have the most national board certified teachers in any city district in California, which is pretty incredible, really, because NBCT teachers are those that have taught successfully for 3 years, for at least 3 years rather, with a valid credential and have met the highest standards of the profession in their certificate area. The small class sizes there, which you think are only associated with maybe private schools, 22 students is what SFUSD has as its class size for kindergarten through to 3rd grade. And this is, again, set out by law. They have to do that. And in many elementary schools, they extend that small class size into 4th and 5th grade. But they use just some of their budget to keep the class size lower. The many options that I was referring to is the language immersion programs, the year-round schools that we've got, the different size schools. There's so many different options in San Francisco. We're very lucky that we've got this lottery system where you can choose from any school in the city, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. The partnerships with organizations are to do with the the wonderful benefit of having long-standing partnerships with arts organizations like the San Francisco Symphony, the Adventures in Music teams that bring choirs and singers into schools and musicians into schools to show students performances, and students go to the San Francisco Symphony. I've been a couple of times. It's been great fun with my kids in the schools. Oh, and I should have probably said that I do have two children in the San Francisco public school system. They came in as first and fourth graders, and they're now giant children who are ninth and 12th graders. So yes, a lot of growth, a lot of change. So as it says there, public schools are part of our democratic institutions. It's led by, I'll tell you in a minute, by the democratically elected Board of Education. And each school has got a school site council, which is made up of parents and teachers and administrators who work together to set the budget and make decisions about the school. And that's what we're really into. We're really into getting families involved and understanding that stuff, because it is their kids, it's your kids' education. You should be involved. It will make a difference. So, oops, I jumped ahead there. This is just quickly telling you that the district, it looks like this right now with this many schools, that you can apply to any of them. That is changing, but it's not changing straight away. We thought that they were going to be changing things the year after the coming year, which would have been entrance into school in 2023, and they've actually pushed it away by another year. So if you've got a child that's going to be 5 on or before September 1st, 2024, so you can work that one out for me. I'm not going to do the maths, but yeah, for 2024 entrants, we'll be the first ones to experience the new system. We'll be doing lots of information about how those changes are going to be taking shape, and it's happening now. So if you see information being shared with you by the district to say, come and have your say, help us figure out how to create these new zones that they've decided upon, that are going to create hopefully a more equal and less segregated way of doing schools in the city, then please do take the opportunity up. It's your chance to have your say. Okay. Please excuse me. Right, transitional kindergarten and kindergarten. If you haven't heard of transitional kindergarten before, it's the stage of school that bridges preschool and kindergarten. It's part of a 2-year kindergarten program where it's a slightly modified curriculum, and it basically gives kids who are that little bit younger but too young for kindergarten the chance to get used to school, get some of those early skills in place, and it just helps them build social skills, developmental skills, academic skills, as I said. And it's a really good option that they're extending more and more at the moment, because it will be county-wide, that all 4-year-olds get transitional kindergarten. But for the coming year, if your child is 5 after September 1st and before February 2nd of 2023, then you can apply for transitional kindergarten. They are not all over the school, all over the city, and I'll show you in a moment how to search for those transitional kindergarten programs. But if your child is eligible, I would highly recommend it. You've got credentialed teachers, which you don't necessarily have in preschools, and it's a really great way of getting connected to a school community nice and early. So as it says there, the dates for kindergarten are, as I said, age 5 by September 1st. Okay. As I said, the elementary school options are very, very broad in the city. We've got general education schools, which is what you and I know about most elementary schools, but we've also got these kindergarten to 8th grade schools, which are called citywide schools, which means that they have there's no K to 8 school is an attendance area school. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But basically, it will mean that you don't have to change schools at 5th grade, and your child can stay in that same school all the way through to 8th grade. So year-round school, we've got one at Argonne, just around the corner from me, and they're there literally all year round. They have 2 weeks off in July, but otherwise they are open all year round. We've got a public Montessori, and as I said, those language pathways, which is something I'll talk about in a little while. So on to the important topic of test scores. And I'm going to shut my notes here just for a second, because I just want to mention the fact that we all want an answer. We want a quick answer. We want, what's the best school? tell me the answer, tell me the numbers that will give me the truth about what education my child's going to receive. We don't at PPS believe that test scores are going to give you a very accurate reflection of the education your child will receive at school, because test scores are, as it says there, often reflect the early advantages that a child has had. If they've been in preschool since 2, then they're likely to be a bit more used to school and that whole the school setting than a child that's not been to preschool before 4 or 5 years old. So that's really important to remember when you're looking at sites like greatschools.org. I know it's very tempting to go, okay, well, there's the top 4 schools that score the highest here. But actually, that's, as I said, it's a reflection of the populations that are in that school at that time. And as it said, it doesn't reflect what a school can do for an individual child, how far it takes them from point A to point B. Okay, on to how to choose again. This counts for going into kindergarten, into middle and high school, and on into college as well. It's something that I'm thinking about when with my son as he thinks about college levels. When you choosing an education institution is all about your values and you and your family. It's not about what other people think is the best. It's what you think is going to suit you, your child, your home environment. Oh, your home values. As it says there are things to consider about whether, you know, what your kid likes, what are they into, what kind of spaces do they like. When I came to the city, we actually got assigned 2 different schools. My daughter got assigned a very small school and my son a much larger school. And that really worked out well for them. The small school really suited my youngest daughter. And the larger school was absolutely very fitting for my big, bold, loud son. And I was very grateful, actually, that we had the opportunity to try both schools. And I didn't move them. I didn't change. I decided to keep them in separate schools just because it suited them. And that is worth thinking about when you're thinking about your child and your family's expectations. Okay, next slide. So yeah, this is hang on. I've moved a window by accident, excuse me. I apologize. The main thing that I like to emphasize here is that folks think that it's all about external influences and how that's going to impact their child. And there's so much evidence to show that it's actually the role of families that is the greatest influence on a child's success in education and in life. And we really want to emphasize that, so you know that you've got the power as your parent, as the first educator, as that main influencer on your child, all the way through into high school and into college as well. That, you know, if you're there supporting, discussing as they get older what you want out of school and how that might suit them and what they want, that's really important to remember. Okay, so I said I was going to talk about language pathways, and actually, I'll talk about this and then perhaps I'll pause just to check we've got any questions. So language pathways is a special program, set of programs run by the district that help families who want to either child to learn English as an English learner, if their home language is not English, or a language other than English, I should say. So let's go through the different options. So general education, as it says, is your daily instruction is in English. But if you go into general education as an English language learner, let's say you came from France or Germany, and your child his home language has always been another language other than English, they'll be tested. If you mark your home language as a language other than English, the district will test your child for their language proficiency, their English language proficiency. She says, eating her words. If they are designated an English language learner, they will be given 30 minutes extra a day within that general education track to make sure that they can build their skills, and if they've got those language skills, they can do better in school later on. And it's really important to make sure that folks who are coming in know that it isn't about separating children out and away from general education. It's really about making sure that their long-term education success is more assured that way. So the language pathways, that the immersion pathways are really for everyone can apply. You don't have to speak those languages at home. And yeah, the goal is for academic competency, they say. So basically, it means that at the beginning there'll be a mixture of, or rather, each class rather is set up to have a mixture of native speakers, but also folks children who've never spoken that language before. And the idea is to mix them up together, and through the course of their education, become more and more proficient in their what's called the target language. So if you had an English speaker at home, goes into a language immersion program to speak Spanish. At the beginning, they'll have 20% of their school day will be taught to them in Spanish, and 80% will be in English. And that will slowly even up as they get through the grades. And so by 5th grade, they'll be doing 50% in Spanish and 50% in English. Biliteracy is a little bit different. And that is basically for families whose home language, as I said, is not English. And the goal, again, is for proficiency and literacy in both English and their target language. So again, it'll be a mixture at the beginning, obviously, a mixture of English and the target language. So in Spanish, it's 20% English and 80% Spanish. But in Cantonese, because Cantonese isn't an alphabetic language, they do 50-50, and that stays 50-50 throughout the program. But with Spanish, it will even up to 50-50 through the years of elementary school. The world language programs here are interesting to lots of folks, which is it's a program, it's a bit like doing world language at middle and high school. So you will have between, I think, what is it? I'm going to just quickly look at my notes, how much time they devote to it. I think it's between 30 and 60 minutes of language and cultural enrichment for 3 to 5 days a week. So pretty much a daily experience of that language. And there's schools like Clarendon and Rosa Parks offer Japanese, and Longfellow Elementary and Bessie Carmichael offer Filipino. So it's a really interesting mixture of programs offered to everybody. So you can apply even if you don't have that language at home. Okay, so I'm gonna speed up a bit. We've gone through what different options there are in the schools for all kindergarten schools, but if you look at this, I'm going to show you what we call enrollment priorities, otherwise known as tiebreakers. So there are different tiebreakers associated with different types of school. So the citywide schools, those are the ones that I mentioned before, are the K-8 schools. So if you're interested in a school called Rooftop, for example, which is a K-8 school, these are the tiebreakers that will be in place if you're entering kindergarten there. So if you've got a sibling in that school, that'll be the first tiebreaker. If you've been to the pre-K or the TK in that school, that's the next set of students that are picked out. And then this term is going to come up a few times, this low test score area. If you live in an area that has traditionally had low test scores, not traditionally, historically, I should say, low test scores, and that, considering there's been so many changes in the city, you may very well live at an address that's in one of those areas, and I'll show you in a little while how to find that information out. Then you get a tiebreaker, and that will pop up in a few instances across this presentation. So look out for it again. Just for regular elementary schools that aren't citywide schools. So all the K-8 schools are citywide, but also biliteracy programs are citywide as well. So for all the rest of the elementary schools, these are the tiebreakers. So if you've got pre-K and TK associated with that school and you live in the attendance area school, you've got that second tiebreaker there. And the attendance area school is basically, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, is an area, let me just get to it and then where I can explain it better to you. So, in 1 second, just adjusting my window. So you mustn't assume that your closest school is your attendance area school. Boundaries for attendance area schools were originally drawn to distribute attendance according to the school's capacity. So it's worth looking up what your attendance area school is, and there's a couple of ways of doing it. So I can quickly show you, but this map, basically it's quite old fashioned, but it will show you what your attendance area is and what your attendance area school is. It will also tell you, if you look at the slide in the top right there, it gives you, once you put your address in, it will tell you whether your address is in a low test score area or not. So that's worth looking at, just to see whether you've got that extra tiebreaker. I'm gonna, since I'm pretty low on time, I'm not going to go to that site, but all the links on this slide presentation are embedded in the slides that I share with you at the end, so you can have a look, you can have a browse around later. Okay, so have I gone on to, no, I haven't. Okay, so we're going to quickly talk about middle schools, because if you go into a middle school language pathway, if you've gone into an elementary language school pathway, you are eligible to go to a middle school language pathway as well. And if you haven't gone to an elementary school language pathway, and you want to go into a language pathway, and as I mentioned earlier, the language pathway is a large percentage of the school day is taught in that target language, then you will be you can apply to a bunch of different schools, and it's worth looking at the list of schools available, seeing which language are offered in each school. For example, if you wanted to go to this the Spanish dual language pathway for middle school, you can go to Buena Vista Horace Mann, you can go to Everett Middle School, you can go to James Lick. There's lots of different options. As it says there are also, I didn't mention the newcomer programs in the last slide. They are for new immigrants to San Francisco. As it says there, it's about providing not just language programs, but also other skills to help children integrate as they come into the city, particularly if they've got limited English language skills. And the world language electives, which is number 4, that is part of the middle grades set up, so you can choose to do language, a world language early. So in fact, you can do 2 years of a language in middle school, which will actually give you an opportunity to go straight into the second level of that language in high school. So my daughter, for example, had the opportunity to do Spanish for 2 years at middle school, and now she's gone into Spanish 2 at high school level. So there are some benefits there as well, if that's what your child's into, if they've got some interest in language, and you know that in high school you have to do 2 years of a language to be able to graduate in California. So that may be interesting to you and your family as well. Okay, I'm going to pause because I've given a lot of information out. I'm going to be talking about how to apply and all that stuff a bit later. But if you can check and see if anyone's got any questions, or you can just speak up if you're attending.
No questions in chat yet, Kate.
Okay, great. All right, lovely. Well, I'll keep going. Right, so.
Actually, Kate, can I ask a quick question really quick? I'm not sure if you're going to get to this, but if I were to want to tour a school, how is that working these days?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be getting to the part about tours and about gathering the information. But yeah, we're going to focus on the structures of what schools have on offer and how you start making those choices first, and then I'll get onto the tours in a little bit. Okay, so this is about, if you haven't heard of the feeder system before, every elementary school has a middle school feeder that it's determined, as it says, by your elementary school. And although it's a system that applies to about 90% of students that go from elementary school into public middle schools, it's not automatic. So you do have to apply again at middle school level. And if you don't want to go to your feeder school, you don't have to. You can apply to another middle school. And but we, as we say, as it says there, we fill out your application, list your feeder school at whatever stage in rank order. If it's top of the list, great. If it's not, that's fine too, and you can apply that way. But the reason we mention it here is because it's important for folks to know that there is an easy route to a middle school through their elementary school choices, and so it's worth thinking about that as you make your kindergarten choices. I know it seems a long way off, 5 or 6 years, but yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about, and it's definitely influences some people's decisions. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of the fact that we've got some schools in the city that have got like a golden ticket into middle schools. If you've gone to those for Bayview elementary schools, for the whole of your elementary experience, you get a tiebreaker for going into any of the middle schools in the city. So if you've got your heart set on a particular middle school for your child, then they need to have attended one of those 4 schools to get that tiebreaker. The next slide is about Willie Brown Middle School, which is a recently built, I think less than 5 years ago. It's a STEM-focused middle school. And it does, if you attend those 3 grades, give you a golden ticket to a high schools in the city. So apart from Ruth Assawa, which I'm going to talk about the art school in a moment, it gives you that golden ticket because it gives you a tiebreaker. It gives you the opportunity to go ahead of the lottery folks to get into any high school you want to. So that's definitely worth considering. And it's a great school. My colleague Leah, who does a lot of these presentations, waxes lyrical about what a brilliant school it is, what amazing labs and facilities they have for the STEM students there. And yeah, if that's your student's bag, then they should have a look at Willie Brown for sure. Okay, so we're going to talk just quickly about, again, the district calls them enrollment priorities. Everybody else calls them tiebreakers. So basically, it means that if you are going into middle school general education track, the first thing you need to think about is if you've got siblings in the school, that's the first tiebreaker. Then it's your feeder school. If you've been to those Bayview elementary schools, and that low test score areas, that CTIP, as it's sometimes known as, is the last tiebreaker. The tiebreaker thing will make more sense in a few slides when I start talking about how the computer system works all this out. So let me just talk a bit more about if you've been in an elementary language pathway, there's a set of tiebreakers to help your child get into the pathway that would continue their language education in middle school. Again, if you want to look in detail at this, definitely will be on the slides. You know what I should have done at the beginning is find out how many high school or middle school families we've got in the house, but I will talk quickly. If I've got time, it's only 12:32. I'm doing pretty well. So can we get a quick show of hands to find out how many people we've got who are got children who are past the elementary level and going into middle or high school? And if somebody could tell me, because I can't see everybody, I can see nearly everybody. You can put your hand up, you can put a thumbs up. I can't see anybody at the moment. Hang on 1 second. No. Here we go. We've got all elementary schools parents. Well, I am definitely going to talk about middle and high school because I know this is a video that Michael is going to be sharing with lots of people. So we're definitely going to be talking about the fact that PPSSF strongly recommends that families communicate with their 8th grader and listen to their input when it comes to choosing high schools. As the parent of 2 teenagers, I can attest to how important that is. It's because this is a really important stage in their life, and this, you cannot, you might have stopped volunteering at your students' middle and high school, but this is the point at which your influence, your conversations, your discussion with your child as they get older will make a difference, really, in terms of their levels of success, how committed they are, frankly, and how well they want to do. Having that conversation with you is really, really important. So some of there are many different options in the city, and some of them, and I will talk about that in a moment, but I do think it's worth having a conversation because the differences are quite large in terms of what courses are on offer, and it's definitely worth having a conversation to say, well, this is only offer on in this school. If you really want to do these topics, these are your options, and this is why I wanted to talk about career technical education, otherwise known as career pathways. A college prep curriculum, that basically just means these are not trade schools. These are academic courses that are just focused into particular areas. I've just got my notes on So basically, these are the A to G requirements that University of California applications require, and CSU, California State University applications require to apply. But it's basically about integrating real world opportunities. So there's internships, there's industry partners coming to do visits and lectures, there's mentoring. It's about encouraging high schoolers to think more broadly about their personal goals, where they want to be when they go to, when they go to college, and the kind of career opportunities that path might take them on. There's lots of opportunities for college credit courses when you're doing CTE courses. But the great thing is that you don't have to choose which one, you don't have to give your decision before you choose a high school. But the important thing to know is that they are different. There are different opportunities at different high schools. Again, I will be sharing the links afterwards about how you find out which courses, including architecture and hospitality and building skills and biosciences and game design and fire science, and you name it. There's so many different opportunities, but the whole idea is that you're continuing that hands-on project-based learning that all middle schoolers experience in San Francisco, and you're demonstrating new skills, soft skills, presentation skills. So I think it's a really, really exciting opportunity that high schoolers have in the city. There's 53 different programs or pathways. So it's definitely worth checking out what's on offer if you've got a child of the right age. And please, please do talk to them about what options there are. As I said, the link will be in the slides. Okay. Enrollment priorities for high school, otherwise known as tiebreakers. So siblings, Willie Brown Middle School's golden tickets and low test score areas, as I said, are the tiebreakers. These are the folks that get picked out first when you are applying to the high schools that you want to apply to. And School of the Arts, Ruth Asawa School of the Arts. It's an amazing institution. It's pretty unique in California. There's so few schools that offer this, particularly at a public level. But as we say to all of our all of our workshops, it's not for a dabbler in their chosen art. It's definitely for folks that are willing to do 2 to 3 hours daily devoted to their art form. The mornings are normally spent on those A to G requirements, but the afternoons and sometimes into the evenings are dedicated to their art. So the other thing I do know about the Ruth Asawa School of the Arts is that they have an amazing track record for sending their students on to some fantastic institutions, some prestigious places, whether it be dance and dance institutions, symphonies, you name it. So it's definitely worth checking out if you've got an arty kid and you want them to explore their options there. It's a bit more complicated to apply. They have a Google form for you to apply to make your interest known. If you're interested in applying for SOTA, you have to fill that Google form in by December 17th. And then you have a look at the audition assignments. There's a different audition assignment for every single art form. So there's like 40 different audition assignments depending on the art form that you have chosen. And you get to work on your audition assignments. This is instead of creating a portfolio. In previous years, students were asked to gather all their work together in a portfolio and to present that to the school, but they've changed that since the pandemic, and these audition assignments are pieces of work that are presented by all students to the school by January 7th, and then there are auditions. So all the details there, as I said, will be on the slides later. Okay, special education, a subject very close to my heart. It is definitely something that is unique and special about public schools. They are legally obliged, and private schools and charter schools are not legally obliged to provide services for students with special educational needs, whether that's somebody with an anxiety issue, somebody with an ADHD type educational need, or has got a hearing problem, or has a physical disability. There are many, many different types of student that can be helped with either an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, or a 504 plan. So the IEP is all the bells and whistles. Is basically if your child is like mine was at 4th grade, identified as having a special educational need, they will be assessed by the district. You can have private assessments done as well, but the district will always do their own assessments using their own qualified psychologists and specialists. They will combine all the results of that and come up with a plan that you agree to as a parent and you advocate for absolutely to help your student achieve their greatest potential. And as I said, it's a subject close to my heart because I had no idea that our family was in need of these services, and you may not be. We didn't find out till my son was nearly 10, so it was a bit of a surprise, but at the same time we've had so many benefits out of this as a family. We've understood our son a lot better, and he's got happier over time, and is doing so much better at school. So I do recommend, if you feel like your child does need that support, those 2 organizations at the bottom there, the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education and Support for Families of Children with Disabilities, are amazing organizations. They are groups dedicated to advocacy. They will help you one-to-one. They will take you through the whole IEP or 504 process. They will work with you one-to-one. They'll attend meetings with you. So I recommend it if that is your circumstances, if you feel like your child needs that special help. And last but not least, if you do feel like, okay, that's definitely my kid, I need some help, speak to the counsellors at the Education Placement Centre. They have specialist counsellors that deal with families who need a placement that suits their child with an education disability. So if you speak to them about your child, they will do their best to find the services and the schools that fit them the best. Okay. All right. Bit of a review before we move on to the how to apply part. February 4th is the deadline. It feels like that's a long way away, but please don't leave it too long. You'd be surprised. It took me about 2 weeks altogether to get my last application finished. So please get that in. You get notified a month later, and depending if you decide to accept, which we urge you to do, to keep your SFUSD public school place, then you have to do that by April 8th. If you're not satisfied with the first round assignment, and this happens a bunch. It happened to my family last year. We got our second choice, and I checked with my daughter, and yeah, she wanted to go into round 2. So we went into round 2. We applied by the deadline, and we were very fortunate enough to get our our first choice school in round 2. So it's definitely worth thinking about that as you go through the process. If you haven't already heard about it, there is a 3rd round called Wait Pool, and that is basically putting your name down after round 2. If you still haven't got the school you want and you're in round 2, you've done round 2, you can put your name down for one school in the summer. And then when everyone comes back in August, schools look at the kids who've actually turned up on in August and figure out how many places actually they have on offer, and they'll go to the wait pool list, and the same lottery that happens for the other rounds, and then that's how to get and then families are offered wait pool places, so seats that come available. Okay. So, any questions? Sorry, I'm going to quickly pause. I've got my eye on the time. I realise I've been talking a while, so if you've got any questions about the stuff I've been mentioning so far, now's your time to speak. Great. I'm assuming everything's fine. Okay, so applying. I assume you've found your way to the Zoom today, so I'm very confident that you'll be able to find your way to Parent View, which is the online application service that the district had to quickly get together a year and a half ago when the pandemic hit and we couldn't fill out those paper forms that we used to do. So yeah, we recommend you go to that website at the top there, online app, sfusd.edu/online app. It will tell you if you've never applied to SFUSD before, if you're a new parent to SFUSD, to create a new account. If you've had an application into SFUSD before, they'll have a record of you, and they'll and that in that instance, that's when you request account activation. That's really important to remember, because you don't want two accounts. It gets very confusing. So make sure that you, if that's your circumstance, please request account activation and follow the instructions. Okay, I'm pretty confident in you guys. I think you'll be fine. You can follow the instructions. And to be honest, like most things, if you just read the instructions on the screen carefully enough, it'll take you through the next stages. For example, the online forms, when you've got your students when you've created an account and you've put your students' details in, you'll be able to select that online forms button and start your online application. Again, the instructions are all there. They've improved it a lot in the last couple of years, thank goodness, made it a lot clearer and easy for families to apply. About 95% of families managed to get their applications in online last year, which is pretty good from a standing start. So I think they've done pretty well, and they're trying to improve all the time. So if you have any questions about it, by all means, I will definitely got the contact details at the end of this presentation. You can always ask us later. Okay, so the main thing is, even if you're doing a paper form or online form, is to have your documents ready. Do not start without knowing where a few of these things are, because it can get frustrating. There are photo ID, driver's license, passport, that kind of thing, proof of a child's birth date. Some folks don't necessarily know where that is, particularly if they've moved home lately. So that's important to find out where that is when you start this process. A proof of home address is essential. You cannot apply if you don't have a residential address in San Francisco. So make sure you get one of those quickly, so you can make an application before February 4th. And there are some circumstances where you can apply from out of district. I won't go into details here, but rest assured, if you work in the city but don't live in the city, there are options to still have your children educated in the city. So do think about that. And as I said, I won't go into details right now, but there are options for you if that's your circumstances. Okay, going to quickly go through the assignment process. We use the bucket analogy because we think it's the most helpful way of describing how the system works. So imagine that for each school that you list on your application, your child's name is placed in a bucket for that school. So if you've got 10 elementary schools you want to apply to, your child's name will go into 10 different buckets. And then, as I said, there are those tiebreakers, and those are the kids that get scooped out of the buckets first. So your child will go into 10 buckets. That's 10 lotteries. So, and using those tiebreakers, they get scooped out of different ones. And if one of those schools is your attendance area school, that's your tiebreaker in that bucket. If one of those schools, their sibling is at that school, that's a good tiebreaker. That'll definitely cut your name is likely to be pulled out of that bucket. So as it says on these next slides, you'll see how this works. There are, for example, in this situation, 60 seats at one particular elementary school. I'm going to shut my notes, excuse me, I'll get confused otherwise. 60 seats at one elementary school, and there are 10 siblings who have applied for those 60 seats. So there's going to be 50 seats left out of those for those 100 applicants, 60 seats. So 10 of those, so you've got 90 applicants left, 50 seats left. Pre-K or TK, let's say that's another 10. I'm sure this is making sense. 80 applicants left, and that's 40 seats left. Another 10 from CTIP, another 10 from attendance area. That takes you down to 30, I think, if I've got my maths right. And then you've got the 30 seats left, and all the folks left in the bucket at that stage don't have any tiebreakers. And that's when the lottery, the picking out of the bucket randomly takes place. So, it's not no chance. But that's why it's important that you understand how the tiebreakers work. Okay. And as it says here, you might win the lottery, as it were, a number of times, depending on how, whether it be you've got a tiebreaker of a sibling, or you're in a, or you've got your attendance area school is on your list. You might very well have 4 schools, as it says here, that come out of the lottery. And as it says there, the algorithm is designed to give you your highest ranked choice. So guess what we recommend? We recommend you rank your schools in order of preference. You've definitely got to do that. Kindergarten, for middle school, for high school, definitely rank them in order of preference, because the system will prefer, or will choose the one that you want, that's highest on your list. Okay, so quick review of our main tips, which is list many schools. Don't choose just 2. If you only choose 2, that means, and you can't, and there's no seats at those 2 schools, then the computer will choose a school for you. So that's why we recommend, if you choose as many schools as you're willing to, as you're happy to send your child to, and we want you to keep your mind open. Think about as many schools as possible and all those wonderful programs we've got across the city. Rank your choices in order of preference, as it says there. Make sure that you've thought about that carefully, and apply to your attendance area school, because it's a tiebreaker, and everyone's got that one tiebreaker in their application, even if you haven't got any siblings to rely on to get you into a school. So registering is basically saying yes or no to a school and saying, yep, I'm going to be taking that place. We recommend you do that, because it holds your public school spot for the further rounds that I mentioned earlier, the round 2 and the wait pool. It doesn't affect your chances. So even though you've accepted a school in round 1, you go into round 2 as a new applicant, essentially. You've still got a place. You go in as a new applicant, and you can pick a whole new list of schools if you want to, as long as they're schools that you want more than the one that you've applied for in round 1. And as I said, it doesn't reduce your chances.
Kate, quick question.
Yes.
Someone asked from the chat. So
Yes.
if someone were to apply in the 2nd and 3rd round assignments,
Yep.
they would not be losing their first round that they were assigned to, right?
That's correct. Unless you accept round 2 school, but you still got it all the way through, unless you accept another school, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, there are a few other questions in the chat too.
Go for it.
So.
Let's pause. I've been talking for far too long.
All right. Well, I think someone had asked about where they find out their test score area. I think that you'd mentioned.
There's this map, which I could quickly show you. Hang on, I'm just going to click away from my screen. Oh, is that the one? Sorry, it's not letting me. Oh, there it is. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is that funky looking old map thing. And you put in, this is my attendance area. So I put in the number of my house, the street name and the street type, and it brought up my my attendance area, this geographical area that I'm in. And it tells me here, it says here on the left, is this a test score area tiebreaker? No, it's not. So I do not have that in my area. Okay, so I'm gonna also show you this clever thing, which is the new tool that they've created in the last year or 2 called School Finder, which is an amazing tool for giving you, showing you all of the ranges of options you've got. So here, when I had a quick play with this earlier on, I was saying that I wanted to go into the grade I wanted to go in was kindergarten. Here's my address. The start time is really important, because if I show you on the drop down, there are a number of start times, and although they've been adjusted a little bit in the last academic year, these are the ones for all of the schools in the city. So if you have an early work start time and you want your child to be able to start the school day early, then you might want to pick, as I have done, 7:50. And I wanted to look at all the language programs on offer, or I could specify which one. The current fluency is with reference to what your home language is. If I put my home language as Spanish, for example, the system would show me the biliteracy programs, because biliteracy is only available to folks who have English as English as a second language, or a language other than English spoken at home. But the language pathways, which is the ones I spoke about earlier, are for everybody to apply to. As it says there, we've got before and after school programs is really important for lots of folks. So I hit after school programs and it gave me 29 schools. But if I wanted a before school program, it went down to 6 schools. And you can have a look at it by map or by list. So, and I can show you these ones. And what's interesting about this is that they not only show you how far away these places are from your home. This is really interesting data, this application data. So this shows that Alvarado is a very popular school. There's more people apply to this school than there are seats. So many more, in fact, that it says general ed entry grade seats per an application, 8%. It just means that's the chance, the chances for every applicant getting a place at Alvarado. So it's important to look at these options, because then you'll know that if you have some popular schools in your list, you should also have some schools that haven't got that low percentage. And when I say popular schools, I don't mean the best schools. It's just schools that randomly people decide are the ones that everyone should go for. And the example I often give is my son's high school, which is Wallenberg. Wallenberg High School 4 years ago when he entered was not a popular school. There were barely, 1.5 applicants per seat there. Now there's 8 applicants per seat, and it is the most applied for high school. So it's the most popular school in the city. There's nothing that's changed. It's completely the same school. There's no big change in administration. There's no big change in academics offered there. It's just folks have decided. So do keep that in mind. I do want to make sure that you are making choices for you and your family, not what the crowd are doing. So it's important to have a mix of schools in your list. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. I do think this is, and as I said, this website is listed at the end of the slide presentation, so you'll be able to go to it yourself. I'm going to present again. Here we are. So this is what we were talking about earlier, how to choose, what resources, how do you learn more about schools? And yes, tours are important. Feeling connected to a school, I know, is so important. And there are some schools doing playground tours. They're not in-school tours. The district is so worried about COVID that it's decided it's not worth the risk of allowing in-person tours. And so what they've done, they've created videos for every single school. They had an enrollment fair a couple of weeks ago where some of you may have already attended. It was great for me and my family last year to attend an online meeting with senior staff. I got to meet the principal, which you very rarely get to do on a school tour. You're more likely to meet a parent or one of the faculty members there. But all the school information sessions at the enrollment fair were recorded, so they'll be up online on the enrollment fair site on SFUSD. So we definitely recommend you do that. But more importantly, it's about thinking what to think about when you're looking at schools. So logistics, location, start and end times. Is there a dress code? What kind of transportation might you need to use to get there? What transportation might be available? The number of classes, the size of the school. So there's a whole list of things that I can recommend. We've got an enrollment tips website. I'm looking at the time. I don't want to run on, but the things like school facilities, yard and play structures are really, really important. Classroom sizes, as in, how many spaces are there available for the classes on offer. If you're going up to higher grades, whether there's labs and gyms and things like that. And also, what, as it says there, what the school website is telling you about how they communicate with parents. What do you see about the school's vision for its students? What's the principal and their staff telling you in their communications that you can glean? And yeah, that's actually way more important for you to do outside of a tour. Really, these are assessments that you make with you and your family and your child. So you can ask questions of schools, you can call them up, you can find out about how lunchtime supervision is done. You can find out about their discipline policy. You can find out so much information about how you can and help you make those assessments. But as it says there, we want you to use a range of information for sure. Parent Ambassadors is something that PPS runs. It's a program of, it's a network of folks who have got experience at schools and are willing to talk to parents about what their family's experience was. And I'm a parent ambassador for a couple of schools, and it's great. I get to talk to parents who are thinking about schools or just, feeling like they need some help deciding. And I'm really happy to tell them just how wonderful the schools that my kids have gone to have been. So that's always a pleasure. And we're very willing to take your requests for parent ambassador connections, and we'll be connect you. Yeah.
A quick question. There are a few questions in the chat, and I just want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered before they have to hop off.
Yes, let's go for it.
Yeah. Do you think that we could run through some of these questions?
Let's go for it.
Okay, cool. So Amanda asked, if you're applying to a school, do you submit for both GE and immersion, for example, or just the immersion program?
Up to you. You can do both. If you've got your heart set on a particular school and they've got two different types of programs, apply to both. You can, yeah, and then if the school is the most important part, so it's up to you, and you can definitely apply to both.
Okay, and I think someone else asked about the proficiency test for the bilingual and bicultural program.
Yes, so bilingual, yes, all the proficiency tests are handled by the Education Placement Centre. So once you as part of your application form, you will indicate what your home language is, and once you've indicated whether it's Spanish or Cantonese or whatever it is, then and you've indicated that your child is speaking that at home, then the district will get in contact with your family and will arrange a short and friendly test to figure out what level of proficiency your child has. It's important here to remember that the district, want to make sure that they are serving families who genuinely do have Spanish as a home language, even if that child has been to a Spanish preschool or had a Spanish speaking nanny. They want to make sure that it's the home language that they're assessing for, not the language that a child has learnt. Because they are very different. They're legally different, because if you are defined as an English language learner, you have to take state mandated tests to move away from being an English language learner. If you don't, as this is once you're in school, once you're in the school system. So it's really important that parents know that if they have they are clear in what their home language is in the application form.
Awesome. And I think the last question I see here from the audience is, do they have to apply every year, or only when moving from elementary to middle and then middle to high school?
That's right. Luckily, gosh, you imagine if it was every year, there'd be a trial, wouldn't it? So yes, you definitely have to apply. Even if you're into transitional kindergarten, you have to apply into kindergarten, but it's kindergarten, but they're called the transitional grades: kindergarten, 5th grade, and 8th grade. So yeah, just when you're changing schools, or as I said, if you've gone for a K to 8 school, then you only have to do that once until they get to high school. So that is genuinely why some people do it, so they don't have to think about switching schools at 5th grade.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions from the chat.
Fantastic. Okay. So I was talking about different things to think about when you're looking at schools, and using some of these places to look, resources to explore. So trust yourself, do your research, create your spreadsheet if you need to, and talk to your family for sure. Okay, I talked before about the enrollment fair, about the fact that there was this opportunity for folks to meet with staff and principals, and to watch videos. So I would definitely recommend you go to their pages online. And that's it. I've got the resources at the end about how to contact us, but this is your QR code, or your I'm going to put this address in the chat actually, so you can access it another way in case you're using a phone.
I have another question.
Go for it.
This is Eun-Young Lee. Does the school publish the number of seats available in each of the schools each year?
It does that at well, I mean, you'll be able to find out how many by looking at their website what the intake is per year, and there's a link at the end of this presentation that's called Enrollment Highlights, where you can look at the number of seats. It will show you the number of seats available, the number of people who applied, the number of folks that got their first choices and second choice and third choice and all of those. So that's interesting. If you're into data, that's definitely an interesting website to have a dig around. I mentioned before about that Enroll in Schools Explore site, and it shows you that percentage. That percentage is based on the number of seats versus the number of people who tend to apply to that school. So that's definitely, there are different ways of getting to that same information for sure. So I wanted to put this, and I can't, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't find the chat. Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. Da, da, da. There it is. There it is. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure everyone's got this website, so you can fill out a very, very short survey and then get the slides at the end that you can copy and keep. Please do that. And how to keep in contact with us. Oops. Is through these various methods. We will definitely be signing you up for our PPSSF newsletter, which is, we're not selling you anything, I promise. We're definitely just sharing information about what's happening in the education system right now, what's happening in public schools, obviously, and any other interesting topics that we think are helpful and useful for families to understand and know about. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're on Remind, which is a useful service if you like receiving things by text. I send out reminders about deadlines and things you should be thinking about, like signing up to Parent View and the online resources that are available to you. So that's definitely worthwhile as well. And we are definitely coming to the end here. These are the links. I've probably been promising these all along. You've got a whole list of things there, as I said, that are all embedded in the slides. And there we have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was so helpful.
I hope I didn't talk too quickly. I'll stop sharing now.
So much information to go through.
I know there's so much, and I didn't want to cut short. I know there's lots of folks here with very young children, but I didn't want to cut that off for folks who might be watching this video another time. As I said, you can email info@ppssf.org if you have questions that weren't covered today, or if you've just got tricky questions like what do I do with twins or things like that, then by all means get in contact and we'll be very happy to help.
Thanks, Kate. And we'll be sharing these slides with everyone. So yeah, and they can reach out with questions. Great. Thank you so much today.
Okay. All right. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay calm. It's going to be okay. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Right. Thanks, Rachel. I'm going to get going. Have a good rest of your day. I'm going to stop recording. I'm presuming you recorded it on your device as well, Rachel, because I didn't get a message saying it was being recorded on mine. Okay, bye.